Good afternoon. Good to see everybody here. The Secretary General will start by giving you an overview of the Ministerial, and then he'll be happy to take your questions. Secretary General.
Good afternoon. Over the next 2 days, NATO defense ministers will make decisions to address the changed security environment we are facing. We will continue adapting our deterrence and defense to meet the threats from any direction. Effective deterrence and defense requires both forward presence of allied forces and our ability to reinforce them quickly if needed. I expect ministers to agree to enhance our forward presence in the eastern part of our alliance. This will bolster our collective defense and at the same time send a powerful signal to deter any aggression or intimidation. We have already strengthened our military presence in the region, and we are setting up 8 small headquarters to support planning, exercises and reinforcements. Our adaptation is transatlantic. The US plan to quadruple the funding for the European Reassurance Initiative is a significant step. It will fund persistent rotational presence of air, land and maritime forces, more training and exercises, more pre-positioning of combat vehicles and supplies, and it will fund more investments in infrastructure such as airfields, training centers and ranges. This will further increase NATO's forward presence and our ability to reinforce. We will also take decisions on how to improve NATO's response to hybrid attacks, which combine conventional military force with subversion, cyber attacks and propaganda. We will speed up our decision making and help ensure that we have all the tools and procedures in place. We will develop ways to boost our resilience, the resilience of our alliance. Because our military forces depend on civilian resources such as food and water supplies, communications and transportation. And we will work even more closely with the European Union on a range of issues, including dealing with the cyber threats. This is part of NATO's long-term adaptation to a new and more challenging security environment. And it will require continued efforts and continued investments. On Thursday, we will also hold a meeting of the NATO-Georgia Commission. Georgia is one of NATO's closest partners. It is pursuing domestic political and security reforms, which are bringing Georgia closer to NATO. At the Wales Summit, we agreed a substantial package of support to Georgia in areas such as planning, air defense, maritime security, and cyber defense. We will discuss the progress we have made and how we can further intensify our support to Georgia. Let me finally turn to Syria. All NATO allies are part of the counter-ISIL coalition. I expect NATO to provide them with support. We are actively considering the US request for NATO AWACS surveillance planes to backfill national capabilities. And I expect we will address this issue at the ministerial meeting tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. as this would increase the coalition's ability to conduct airstrikes against ISIL. NATO strongly supports all efforts to end the suffering, reach a ceasefire, and start a political transition in Syria. The intense Russian airstrikes, mainly against opposition forces, are undermining these efforts. They are driving tens of thousands of people to Turkish border and making a desperate humanitarian crisis even more desperate and even worse. The increased Russian air activity in Syria is also leading to violations of NATO airspace. Overall, the substantial Russian military buildup in Syria and the eastern Mediterranean is shifting the strategic balance and raising tensions in the region. So calm, de-escalation, and political solutions are more urgent than ever. And with this, I'm ready to take your questions.